Something just happened in Colorado, and it wasn't random. Shedeur Sanders just pulled up back in Boulder without any big announcement, no media rollout, no hype, just a quiet return that instantly got people talking. And if you think this was just a casual visit, you're already missing the bigger picture. Because timing matters. We're getting closer to the season, expectations are rising, and pressure is building around one of the most talked about quarterbacks in college football. And right when things start heating up, Shedeur suddenly reappears at the home of Deion Sanders. Coincidence not likely. Fans started connecting the dots almost immediately. A subtle post, a surprise appearance, and then footage drops showing exactly what's going on behind the scenes. No distractions, no celebrations, just work. And that's where things take a turn. Because this isn't just about a reunion, it's about preparation. It's about proving something. And depending on who you ask, this could be the moment where Shedeur either silences the doubters or adds even more pressure to his name. But here's the part nobody's really saying out loud. This move might be bigger than college football. And once you see what really happened after he got there, you'll understand why. It didn't start with a headline, it didn't even start with a big announcement. It started quietly. At some point during the day, Shedeur Sanders dropped a simple post on social media. No dramatic caption, no explanation, just a subtle signal that he was back in Colorado, and if you blinked, you probably missed it. But the internet didn't. Within minutes, fans began connecting the dots. The location looked familiar, the timing felt intentional, and suddenly what seemed like a low-key update turned into something much bigger, because this wasn't just about where he was, it was about when he showed up. We're not in the off-season anymore where players can move around casually. This is the phase where everything starts to lock in. Every workout matters, every decision carries weight. And right in the middle of that shift, Shedeur pops back up in Boulder like he never left. No press, no interviews, just presence. In that silence, that's what made it loud. Because when a player of his caliber moves without saying much, it usually means one thing: he's focused, locked in, not trying to entertain, not trying to go viral, just handling business behind the scenes. But fans weren't buying that it was just a visit. Some started speculating that this was planned all along. Others pointed out how close we are to the season and suggested this could be the beginning of something bigger. There's even been chatter online, nothing confirmed, just what people are saying, that this return wasn't about comfort, it was about preparation. And if that's true, it changes everything. Because showing up quietly sends a different kind of message. It doesn't scream for attention, it demands respect. It tells the locker room, the coaches, and even the critics that something is happening behind the scenes. And then things got even more interesting. Because not long after that post, footage started surfacing. Now this is where things stop being casual and start looking intentional. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't just come back to Colorado to hang out. He didn't show up for a photo op, and he definitely didn't make that trip just to be seen. Everything about the timing points to one thing: work. And not just regular work, serious preparation. Think about it, Colorado isn't just any location. The altitude alone changes everything. Training there pushes your body differently, forces your lungs to adapt, and builds endurance at a level most players don't get access to. So when a quarterback like Shedeur decides to return right now, right as things are heating up, that's not random, that's strategic. Fans started picking up on that almost instantly. You could see it in the comments, the reactions, the conversations online. People weren't asking why he was there, they were asking what he's getting ready for. Because moves like this usually happen when something bigger is on the horizon. And here, where it gets even more interesting. There was no loud announcement saying, "I'm here to grind." No speech about locking in. But sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. Just showing up at the facility, stepping back into that environment, being around the team again, that sends a message without saying anything at all. It tells everyone watching that he's not playing around. And whether people want to admit it or not, there's pressure building around him. Expectations are higher than ever. Every performance is being watched, analyzed, and debated. So instead of responding to the noise, he does the opposite, he goes back to work. That's a different mindset. Now, some fans have been speculating, nothing confirmed, just what's being said, that this return is about more than just getting reps in. Some believe he's preparing to make a statement this season. Others think he's already aware of the doubters and is quietly getting ready to answer them on the field. Either way, the energy feels different. Because when a player moves like this, without distractions, without making it a show, it usually means they're focused on something bigger than what everyone else sees. And just when people started realizing that, that's when the footage dropped. And then everything changed with one video. Out of nowhere, Deion Sanders Jr. dropped fresh footage on well-off media, and suddenly fans weren't guessing anymore, they were watching it unfold in real time. Because there he was. Shedeur Sanders didn't just return quietly, he pulled up like he already belonged there. No hesitation, no awkward energy, just confidence like he never left. And that's what caught people off guard. The moment didn't feel staged, it wasn't some overproduced highlight clip or scripted media piece. It felt raw, natural, almost like you weren't supposed to see it, but somehow you did. You see him walking in, interacting, joking around, but underneath all that, there's a different kind of energy. Calm, but locked in, relaxed, but focused. It's the kind of presence that doesn't need to say much because the message is already clear. He's here for a reason. There's even a moment where the conversation turns light, talking about clothes, shoes, just regular day-to-day stuff. And on the surface, it looks like nothing serious, just family, just vibes. But if you really pay attention, it tells you everything. Because that comfort, that confidence, that only comes from someone who knows exactly what they're about to do next. And that's why fans started reacting the way they did. Some saw it as a simple reunion, others saw something deeper, a player stepping back into his environment with purpose. There's been a lot of buzz online, with people saying this wasn't just a casual pull-up, it was a statement without saying a word. And honestly, it's hard to ignore. Because when a player moves like that, without forcing attention, without trying to go viral, that's usually when something real is happening behind the scenes. But here, where it gets even more interesting. Because while everyone was focused on the reunion, the jokes, and the vibe, they almost missed what came right after. And that part, that's where the tone completely shifted. At first glance, it looked like a normal moment. A son pulling up to see his dad, a few jokes, some casual conversation, nothing too serious. But if you really watch closely, there was something else there. Because this isn't just any father and son. This is Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders. And that changes everything. The energy between them wasn't loud or emotional, it was controlled, calm, almost calculated. They joked about clothes, talked about shoes, kept things light, but underneath all that, there was a clear understanding that didn't need to be said out loud. This isn't just family time. This is business. Because when Shedeur walked in, there was no big greeting, no over-the-top reaction. It was almost like Coach Prime expected him to be there. Like this wasn't a surprise, it was part of the plan. And that detail matters. Because it tells you this wasn't some random visit. This was alignment. Father and son on the same page, moving with purpose even if they're not spelling it out for everyone watching. And then there's the tone. Coach Prime didn't need to lecture him, he didn't need to give a speech. That's what stood out the most. When a player already knows what's expected, the conversations get shorter but the meaning gets deeper. That's exactly what this felt like. There's also been a lot of talk online, nothing confirmed, just what people are saying, that Shedeur carries a different kind of pressure than most players. Not just because of his talent, but because of who his father is. Every move gets analyzed, every decision gets questioned. But in that moment, none of that noise was there. Just understanding. And maybe that's the most important part. Because when you strip everything else away, the media, the hype, the critics, you're left with a player who knows exactly what's expected of him, and a coach who knows exactly what he's capable of. No words needed. And that's what makes this moment different. It wasn't about what they said, it was about what they didn't say. And right after that quiet understanding, the entire tone shifted once they stepped onto the field. And this is where the entire vibe changed. Because once they stepped onto that field, it wasn't jokes anymore, it wasn't casual, it wasn't family time. It was serious. Deion Sanders gathered the team, and what he said next wasn't just a regular speech, it was a message, a tone setter, the kind of moment that tells you exactly what kind of season is coming. He started talking about mindset, about purpose, about how a great team doesn't just go through the motions, they challenge each other, push each other, hold each other accountable every single day. And then he said something that stood out. Violence. Now, he wasn't talking about anything reckless. He was talking about intensity, controlled aggression, that edge you need to compete at the highest level, the kind of energy where every rep matters, every play counts, and nobody takes a step off. That word hit different, because it revealed the identity he's trying to build. This isn't a soft team, this isn't a team just trying to look good on social media. This is a group being shaped to compete, to dominate, and to hold each other to a higher standard, even when it gets uncomfortable. He even emphasized that teammates should be able to call each other out. No ego, no excuses. If you mess up, someone's going to tell you not to tear you down, but to sharpen you. Iron sharpens iron. That line wasn't just a cliche, it was the foundation of everything he was saying. And here where it gets interesting. Because while he's addressing the entire team, you can't help but think about Shedeur Sanders standing there, hearing all of it, taking it in, understanding exactly what's expected, not just as a player, but as a leader. There's been a lot of talk online, again, nothing confirmed, just what people are saying, that this season is going to define him, that the expectations aren't just high, they're different. In speeches like this, they don't happen by accident. They set the tone for what's coming. They let everyone know there's no room for shortcuts, no room for distractions, just work, accountability, and that edge Coach Prime keeps talking about. Because at the end of the day, he made one thing very clear. All that extra stuff, it doesn't win games. And if you thought that message was intense, what happened outside the field right after this made things even louder. But while all of this was happening in Colorado, the conversation outside was getting louder. A lot louder. Because now, it's not just fans watching Shedeur Sanders anymore, it's analysts, scouts, and people at the next level starting to weigh in. And once that happens, everything changes. Suddenly, the discussion isn't just about college football. It's about the future. You had voices like Mel Kiper Jr. stepping in, pushing back against the narrative that Shedeur isn't that guy. In fact, Kiper made it clear, he believes Shedeur has already shown more than people are giving him credit for. Toughness, composure, the ability to take hits and still deliver, those aren't small things. And when someone like that speaks up, people listen. But not everyone agrees. There's been a wave of debate online, with some analysts and fans bringing up other quarterbacks, throwing names around, and questioning where Shedeur really ranks. You hear comparisons, you hear doubts, you hear people saying maybe another QB fits better at the next level. And that's where things get interesting. Because there's also been buzz, again, nothing confirmed, just what's being said, that teams like the Cleveland Browns have been part of the conversation. Not officially, not in any locked-in way, but enough chatter to keep his name circulating in NFL discussions. And that kind of attention, it comes with pressure. Because now, every move he makes gets viewed through a different lens. It's no longer just about winning games, it's about proving you belong in that next tier, proving you can lead, proving you can handle everything that comes with it. Some people believe he's already ahead of schedule. Others think the hype might be getting a little out of control. And that split, that's what's driving the entire conversation right now. Because on one side, you've got believers saying he's been overlooked, doubted for no reason, and is ready to prove everybody wrong. On the other side, you've got critics questioning whether he's truly elite or just benefiting from the spotlight around him. Two completely different narratives. And both of them are building at the same time. But here's the thing. Debates like this don't happen unless you're doing something right. And as the noise keeps growing louder, it's setting the stage for something even bigger. At this point, the conversation has split into two completely different worlds. On one side, you've got the believers. On the other, the doubters. And right in the middle of it all is Shedeur Sanders. Because depending on who you ask, he's either next up or not quite there yet. The believers will tell you he's already proven enough. They point to his toughness, how he stands in the pocket and takes hits most quarterbacks wouldn't survive. They talk about his accuracy, his confidence, the way he carries himself like a leader. To them, it's simple, he's built for the next level and people are just late to realize it. But then you've got the other side. The doubters. And they're not quiet about it. They question everything. The hype, the attention, even the system he's playing in. Some say he's benefiting from the spotlight around Deion Sanders. Others argue that we haven't seen enough yet to call him elite. There's been chatter again, just what people are saying, that his name carries more weight than his resume right now. And that's where the tension comes from. Because both sides think they're right. One side sees a future star being overlooked. The other sees a player who still has something to prove. And the truth is, this kind of divide doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a player is right on that line. Not unknown anymore, but not fully accepted either. Right in that space where every game, every throw, every decision gets picked apart in real time. And for Shedeur, that spotlight is even brighter. Because he's not just any quarterback. He's Coach Prime's quarterback. Which means every success gets amplified and every mistake gets magnified. There's no middle ground. Either he proves the believers right, or he gives the doubters more fuel. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because with everything building, the return to Colorado, the work behind the scenes, the rising noise around his name, he's walking into a season where narratives are ready to flip instantly. All it takes is one stretch of games, one statement performance, one moment, and suddenly the entire conversation changes. But here's the thing nobody can agree on yet. Which side is about to be proven right? But here's the part that's flying under the radar. This isn't just about football. This is about pressure most players will never experience. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just trying to prove himself as a quarterback, he's doing it under one of the brightest spotlights in the sport. Every move, every throw, every decision gets analyzed at a different level. And a big part of that comes from who he is connected to. Deion Sanders. Now, that comes with advantages, there's no denying that. Access, exposure, opportunity, it's all there, but what people don't always talk about is the other side of that. The expectations. Because when your father is Coach Prime, good isn't good enough, winning isn't enough. Even great performances get picked apart. There's always going to be someone saying it's because of the system, the spotlight, or the name. And that creates a different kind of pressure. It means you don't just have to succeed, you have to prove that your success is yours. Over and over again. There's also been ongoing conversation, again, just what people are saying, that players in high-profile situations like this don't always get judged fairly. Some believe they're given too much credit, others believe they're held to impossible standards. And Shedeur is right in the middle of that debate. Because if he wins, people question how he did it. If he struggles, people use it as proof against him. There's almost no neutral ground. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because this return to Colorado, this quiet move, this focus on work, it feels like a response to all of that without actually saying anything. No interviews, no statements, just action. And sometimes, that's the loudest response you can give. But there's another layer to this too. Because this isn't just about proving people wrong, it's about shaping what comes next. His future, his draft stock, his legacy, the way people talk about his name years from now. Everything is building toward that. And the decisions he's making right now, the way he's moving, the way he's preparing. It all plays into that bigger picture. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a season. It's a turning point. And depending on how it plays out, it could change everything. So when you step back and look at everything, this wasn't just a random return. It wasn't just a quick visit. And it definitely wasn't just about being back in Colorado. What Shedeur Sanders just did feels a lot more intentional than people realize. The timing, the silence, the work, the energy around it, it all points to something bigger building behind the scenes. Because players don't move like this unless there's a purpose. And right now, it feels like he's preparing for something. Not talking, not explaining, just showing up and putting in the work where it matters most. And in a time where everyone is chasing attention, that kind of move stands out even more. But here where it gets real. Everything we've talked about, the return, the footage, the speeches, the debates, it's all leading to one moment. When the season starts. Because that's when none of this talking matters anymore. That's when the opinions, the speculation, the comparisons, all of it gets tested in real time. Every throw, every decision, every game becomes part of the answer people have been waiting for. And that's the part nobody can predict. Because on one side you've got people saying he's ready, that he's already shown enough, that this is the season where everything clicks and he takes that next step. On the other side you've got people waiting, watching, questioning whether he can really deliver when it counts the most. Two completely different expectations, and both of them are about to collide. But if there's one thing that stands out from all of this, it's the way he's moving right now. Quiet, focused, locked in. No distractions, no unnecessary noise, just preparation. And sometimes that tells you everything you need to know. Because the players who move like that, they're usually the ones getting ready to make a statement. So now the only question left is this. When that moment comes, is Shedeur Sanders about to prove everyone wrong? Or prove the hype was real all along?